Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome presenter and editor-in-chief, BFM, Fabrice LUNDY.
You're Fabrice LUNDY. Good morning, everyone. And it's been a very interesting morning. Thank you, Richard Atias, for the quality of this platform here. We've been talking about innovation this morning. This is the key to growth, and innovation is not just looking for researchers and laboratories and technology. Innovation also goes through the idea of design, innovation services. For instance, how can industry be a winner in terms of services, in terms of being a tool of reconquering the industry? And so I'm going to be introducing all of our different panel members. These are very interesting panel members. For instance, they're going to make you dream. And this is Mr. Hicham LAHLOU. So he is a designer, and he is the head of his agency called 1852, and he has just launched a new design. It's called Africa Design Award, which is going to be given here today, and he's going to be talking to us about his award. So, Mr. Hicham, if I would like to talk about Apple and so on, we heard some people talking about Sébastien Decoux. He was talking about Nespresso, Seb. And then, of course, we've seen these industrial succeeds. We've had design performance, and they've been innovative. And so I think in the future, we're not just going to buy an object. We're going to buy a use. We're going to buy an environment. We're going to buy an experience. Yes, absolutely. I'd like to thank Mr. Richard Atias and his equipment and his team for having given our group an opportunity to become visible. And in fact, all the different brands that you've mentioned, they all conclude histories and families, and these different products for the good of the consumers, of course, are directed towards the final consumer. We would have a product that's useful, and which is, there's also an emotional aspect to the product. And it is for that reason that we also have a strategy, an industry, and services that are included in this. For instance, it presents an image, it's sort of a pride of a country. And these designs also represent the people who have been working towards this product and working towards the growth of their economies in their countries. And so I'd like for you to simply talk to us about what you mean, because when you're talking about design, we're talking about beautiful objects, but I think we're also talking about design of services. What does that mean? Well, design of services means, for instance, when we talk about, we've heard Mr. Ducot talk about this, we could call it a social design, popular design in terms of a city, urban services, in terms of administrating cities. And whether it is for business investors and tourists, and when it's been well thought out, it's going to avoid a sort of a cacophony, a visual cacophony in the cities. I believe that you are in Rabat, Casablanca, and you're from Morocco. And could you explain to us what you're doing in the cities of Morocco? Well, yes, I was very lucky to be able to be one of the designers in the Moroccan cities, and the omnibus in Casablanca. And in terms of the design of services, we've also been working on the graphic system for the codifying of programs and the signal signs and so on that are used in Morocco. We've been doing this for the past 3 years, and we've been designing this service. And this, of course, is very useful, and it's been directed towards the users. We also have different standards for this coding system. And we can't do just anything we want. And we get sort of an order, if you like, from the public authorities. And, of course, we set up the system for them. And, of course, they keep an eye on what we're doing, and they have the opportunity to make a strategic analysis of what we're doing so that we can, obligating us to be very pragmatic. And, okay, in terms of industries, whether they're small, medium, or large, how do they integrate this idea of innovating design? Well, yes, the different designs are introducing this even more and more so in terms of the managerial decision-making. It's very important for them when we're talking about Africa, because, after all, we have to integrate this in their systems of managerial decisions, and also integrate this in terms of the public authorities, also together with the private sector, because it's coherent, it's logical, And when we have designers, they become ambassadors, actually, because abroad we can see this improvement in different in the African cities, and so they become ambassadors for their countries. We're going to be talking about 3 of them who are going to be talking about their experience. So, what is the win solution of the African continent to integrate the idea of designing these services? Let's take the example of LAHLOU. For instance, in terms of hotel services. Thank you for the question. Yes, hotel business is very interesting. We're going to be having a boom in the hotel industry in Africa, for sure. And so the designers are going to have a very important role to play. And we're talking about African designers within their countries and also in the continent in general. And there's going to be a certain synergy between the different designers that are going to be replying to the needs of very big projects. And a point I wanted to bring up is that the major groups that are going to be coming, whether it's going to be Starwood or other groups, in addition to the lobbying that the different leaders in Africa can set up, they're going to have to succeed or impose different norms and standards for the African designers so that they can somehow be included in the sort of the world design and to appeal to an international level, and also to create jobs and to permit young designers to come into the markets. Do you also insist on the possibility of forming and training young designers and designing schools? Yes, we have to teach design in the schools. And we talk about this in the different universities and the incubators for innovative services. And we try to integrate in terms of the economic ecosystems. We like to support these young people. And we're going to be launching something called African Design School, where we're going to be looking at different investments in order to set up a network in Africa to train these young future designers. And so others are going to be designers. So what is the African Design Award? Well, it's a strategic platform for networking where we're going to have people from different countries in the world who have agreed to join us on the platform, and they're going to be setting up a prize. And so that they can allow people to know that this domain now exists and there are leaders in the area, and that we also have future leaders, and we can also have local collectivities and industries, whether it's an agro industry or in pharmaceutical industry and the services, which will be using these designs, and we have to award them. We have to show them that what they're doing is very important. Okay, so we're going to have these 3 people join us now, and c'est Zanawa Bia that I'm going to introduce you in a minute. We also, please, Julie Charroux. Good morning, everyone. And so Zanawa Bia is from Canada, and the director of Eco-Design Magazine. And then we have, I believe you have been giving us some magnificent designs. And then, of course, we have Ania Teodosa, who's going to be with us, who is a designer in the Sweet Secret, the fashion design. She's going to be talking to us later about her designs. So, if I talk to you about design for a business, what does it mean? Growth? Employment? Does it say something to you? Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. The businesses that we promote are using this idea of design for growth and employment, and also the idea of creativity and development. Because a business, whether it's small or big, today in Africa, cannot develop just by itself without calling upon design. So design is very important. It means innovation. It means competitiveness. We mustn't forget this idea. And at the same time, I would talk about growth through creativity, because I think that with this, we can produce specific products to a given market so that the users can see this and it becomes visible. And this can facilitate the marketing for the different businesses and by the different products that we promote. And Diallo, is there sort of an African touch in the area of design? Yes, of course. I think we could call it this. For instance, if I tell you a story because at the end of this story, I think we have found an African touch, and we could describe it. I was very lucky to be a globetrotter of design, and very early I had understood that the artisanal level was sort of the cornerstone of the means of producing here in Africa. And it's true that design is often assimilated to industry, but that's good for the country to be able to realize. But those who don't have that money to be able to pay for this kind of design, they can't have that international contact. And so I think that artisanal activities are a tool for the development of design. And this, of course, allowed me to work with several different countries as a consultant in order to develop different products that were designed for export. And these products, thank God, they have been very successful, and successful for those businesses and for those economies, those national economies, and especially for myself, because they allowed me to actually create a brand. And what can we talk about this African touch? Well, yeah, it's very difficult to say that this African touch in itself has any value. It's sort of a value that is given to a product. We were talking about a designer as an ambassador. I would say that they're objects that becomes ambassadors because they tell a story of men, of people, a story of a context, a social context. Africa, I think, has a lot to contribute, and it is this additional soul that we're looking for in these different objects. They can be found in the different products that are being created in Africa, because the majority of them are being made by hand, and of course this transmits a great deal of soul. And now we have a young designer from Gabon who's with us here. This is Ania Theodoros, and she's got a fashion design called Sweet Secret. And okay, so what do you think about? Yes, good morning, everybody. Well, I think that the idea of African identity is maybe not basic. It's very important in order to see the wealth of African design. And I think this will give value to the designs from Africa. But we mustn't just limit ourselves to an African identity, because all of us are mulatto, we're mixed, and we take our inspirations from the Western countries, from Asia, and from Africa. But I think it's necessary to understand that there's a lot of talent in Africa. And so you could please tell us your secret. What is the Sweet Secret? Well, Sweet Secret is the brand, and of course I myself am a designer, and I have launched this brand, Sweet Secret, which in the beginning was a very feminine brand, and now we have existed for the last 2.5 years. I'm located right here in Libreville, and now we're going to be going onto the male market, and we're hoping to develop some brands of ready-made clothes for men throughout all of Africa at an international level also. And so now you're just selling in Gabon? Where do you sell right now? Are you selling just in Gabon? No, we also export, and we export to Paris and to the Antilles. Well, yes, I think it's very important. The prize that has been launched, the African Design Award, is it? Yes, it's important for me, because he was saying it's going to be a platform and a means of recognizing those of us who are designing, and also a way of promoting our talent. And Michel LAHLOU, before taking some more questions in the room, innovation and design, is it being recognized within the different businesses here in Africa? Is there somebody who's responsible for design in your board, for instance? Well, yes. For instance, in Morocco, there are some people who are very much aware of this, but we have a tendency to look towards directors of marketing, and I think we should have a person who is responsible for design management. But I'd like to repeat what Diallo has just said, coming from countries that have important designs. I think they represent 20% of the GDP already. 20% comes from the artisanal work, as Diallo said. And so I think that we have succeeded in establishing our brand in terms of the designer. But I think in the private sector, certain brands have emerged, and they've done a really good job on the international level. But we still have a lot of work to do in this particular level. And so it comes back to your question. In other words, as soon as we talk about design and the decision makers, because last year I was here as a visitor, and they said, "What are you doing?" So what does that mean? It means a lot. In other words, because I just came as a visitor, and it was a business informer, and you know, business. I mean, design is a business, and when somebody said it's a good design, it's good business, people start to recognize the value of design. And when we look at the, for instance, as somebody who produces nothing cannot get rich, so you've got to create and you've got to design things in order to see the value of these products. And so there's a strong value of design. We'll take some questions from the floor. Okay, right over here, third row over. A question, sir. And will there be a second question? Okay, we've got another question right over here on the other side of the room. Okay, what's your question? Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Mine is Omeme Justin. I'm a master's student in sociology, university. And what is the role of consumers in design? Thank you. Okay, Diallo, maybe you could answer that question. Yes, I think that the goal, the object, the final object of design is the satisfying the consumer. If you don't satisfy the consumer, then for me, then there's no role for design. Because in fact, design is nothing other than the observation of the world that surrounds us. In other words, transform something in a very pleasant way, a fantastic way, the lifestyle around us. And so a designer cannot work in an ivory tower and in an isolated way. He's got to keep in mind the final end of the chain, the value chain, and so he's dealing directly with the consumer. Good morning, everybody. I am Mrs. LAHLOU. I'm a student in the Master's 2 program, Finance, in the Business Institute here in Libreville. I can see that the theme of this panel is how can we transform design into added value. And so I'm a little bit surprised because I'd like to know, in Africa, where we have a numerous population who are living under the threshold of poverty, what is design going to bring to them? And I think this is what this is what we want to know. And I think this is why the different governments and the different donors are a little bit skeptical in terms of design. Could you somehow edify us in terms of the purpose and the role, the added value for money or value that could somehow serve these poor populations? Because it's not clear to me. Thank you very much. It was a good question. I think everybody wants to answer that question, but we don't have much time. So, Nadia, could you please give us an answer to that question? Well, we've understood the role of design. And of course, design is part of the economy. And so in each business, we have a small design unit. For instance, I'm in fashion design, and we can take an example of France. For instance, fashion design and textiles are a very important part of the French economy. So if we can develop in our African economies this fashion design, and we can attract investors from abroad, and then I think we're going to be able to create employment. And through this wealth that we can create, then I think we can better meet the needs of the poor population. Well, I'd like to add something. I think that design is a very important development tool and growth tool, because the different businesses that we're working with in our continent, and the element that the most important thing, so that the poor populations can somehow take advantage of this design, is the synergy between the public powers and these different businesses, so that the needs, basic needs of the population should be taken into consideration, because there are two different elements. So there should be creation in terms of the different groups, the creator, the schools, the designers, the different foundations so that they all come together. And everybody should find something interesting. Then we can find solutions, concrete solutions to the problems of poverty in our different regions. And just a short word from you, Hicham. Yes, absolutely. Design is not only just to be pretty in the terms of our consciousness. It's a vector of development. It's a tool also. And I can give you an example when we talk about the project that's been presented yesterday. And this was the accessibility to water. And there was a designer who thought that if we could somehow produce a tool that would allow the general population to have access to drinking water, then that would be very useful, pleasant, and easy. And of course, then this would be up to the designer to set up some kind of a system that we could make this possible. And so just, we're now going to have a coffee break, so just one last word. Well, yes, I think the 21st century is the century of design, and so the European community said that it was 2010, the century, the year of design. But I think that it's going to be right now in Africa. If we can have we can produce what we can put it in the hotels, we can make the artisans, give them work, we can develop different experts in the different levels in all our countries, different technicians. I think we can create a lot of employment, and I think it is perfectly integrated into the growth of Africa. So the Creator of Africa, the Design Award, and his agents, 1852 and Company. So thank you very much, all the different panel members, for your contributions, and also our from Gabon Sweet Secret. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all and we'll go on to the coffee break. Thank you.